Yo, 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 we live on location. It's all Florida today, everybody. Florida, shouty. Florida, Florida, Florida. Me and D Miles is right here in Orlando, Central Florida, City Beautiful, and we got
Hall of Famer.
Dare I say it,
Jesus.
JESUS SHUTTLESWORTH, dare I say it, the top
He got
3-point
game.
maker of all time right now. I'm talking about the original member of Jordan Brand team, Lethal G-Force. He was the original member. He the big brother to everybody you see right now, including me, D Miles, on to Russ and Melo. This the big bro of the Jordan Brand. We got Jesus Ray Allen in the building with us, baby. What's up, man? We appreciate you pulling up on us, man. This is super dope.
Man, thank y'all for having me. I've been watching y'all for a long time now. You guys been doing some great stuff. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Man, appreciate you, man. You know, it's a blessing to have you on the show, so thank you.
Well, thank you guys for having me. You guys been killing it. I've been watching.
So first question we ask everybody, when you first got to the league, who was the first person to bust your ass?
First person that got me was Glenn Rice.
Dirty Rice.
Man.
Dirty Rice.
That man put me on the block, and it was like fresh meat that he saw. I was supposed to be guarding Dell Curry, and then there was a switch off, and I'm just trying to figure out the league and how this game is played, and I was a liability all season long because I'm playing against guys that in college, you stand next to a guy and you act like you got a hand up. He's not going to shoot it.
Right, yeah.
You get to the league and you try that. Dell Curry had the ball up like that, and I was just in front of him. He looked at me. He's like, "Oh, you ain't gonna put your hand up?" And he shot it. He didn't even bend his leg. Nothing. He
just right from there, huh?
Right from there, and I was like. And then I looked at the coach, and he looked at me like I did something wrong. I was like, I obviously guarding the man.
And Glenn Rice had that high arc. He used to have that ball up high, so it was hard to block his shot or even adjust his shot.
And he was strong as hell too.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I couldn't get in front of him. I couldn't deny the ball, and he was gonna get it. He's 6'8". He's gonna get the ball where he wanted it. When I got to the league, the saying, I still say it now, good defense, better offense. And you don't realize that until you play in the NBA, because you can play perfect defense in the NBA, and the guy is still going to score on you no matter what.
When we first got to the league, you was with the Milwaukee Bucks, and y'all had them hitters on that squad, from Sam Cassell to Big Dog to Tim Thomas, like Anthony Mason. Like, I remember when we got to the league, I felt like that team was the team that could compete with the Lakers in them championships. I feel like, I think that one year y'all beat them 2 games y'all played there. And I feel like y'all team was built to play against us. Speak on that team, because we used to call y'all 2-point geezers. Me and Q used to always call y'all 2-point geezers, because you, Sam, Big Dog, y'all boys did never miss.
Y'all shot so many 2-pointers.
Like I'm talking about, like every time that y'all shot the ball, we was like, man, that mug ain't missing. So, like, how was that to play with that team and have that much firepower and feel like you can win a championship in them early days?
We should have stayed together a lot longer. I think one of our fatal flaws, and God rest his soul, with Anthony Mason, we had such a great chemistry, and when we added him to the mix, it disrupted that, because we played fast, and we played, took the first available shot. And when he came, he didn't subscribe to that style of play. It was like we added somebody different that slowed us down. And prior to that, previous years, I love the way George Karl coached us then, because we had, from myself to Glenn to Tim Thomas to Sam to Michael Red
High Riblets.
Yeah. And George used to always say it. He was like my weapons,
He had a lot of them.
Yeah, but the way he played, like I was the leading scorer on the team, but it wasn't like the offense was geared towards me. Everybody had input into the game, the way we played.
You're right.
Similar to the way, teams are playing now, but we took everything from threes to twos, the post-ups. And when Darvin Ham came in the game, he had to play. And we all knew it, and we just situated around it. We knew, we got threes off offensive rebounds. We knew that we were going to play fast in transition. And so everybody had, input. There was one game where Tim Thomas maybe had 40 that helped us win. I think it was Portland during the year. So you're right. We beat the Lakers twice that year, but then we couldn't get past Philly. They suspended Scott Williams in Game 7 as we fly to Philly. And that to me is one of the saddest moments for my career, just remember going back on that, because no way should a league determine the outcome of a game by suspending the guy. All he did was elbow AI in the lane, and he fell, and they gave him a foul. And they upgraded it to a flagrant or technical, which suspended Scott for that next game. And that right there was a story for us. But we certainly, I think, early we set the blueprint for how things are today, how teams are. We used to have, I remember Rick Bucher was following us all year trying to figure out if we can win this way. It's been proven now, with Golden State and with Toronto, because the league certainly has changed.
Take me back to South Carolina. So you was an Air Force kid. You moved around a lot, but you grew up mostly in South Carolina?
Well, so I was born in California, and then I moved to Germany, and then from Germany to Oklahoma, from Oklahoma to England, from England to Southern California, and from Southern California to South Carolina. So when I was 13, I moved to South Carolina. I was in the 8th grade, and I that was from 8th grade on till I went to UConn. I was in South Carolina, and I have to say, all that traveling prepared me for ultimately going to college and then playing in the NBA. And then having exposure and touching all those different parts of the world, gave me an understanding that, what takes place all around the world is different, not necessarily better, but different. But up until then, so when you're in the military, all the schools that you go to are on base. They're Department of Defense funded. So they're basically private schools. You had the best teachers, best lunch, school, food. Teachers were paid very well. So when I got to South Carolina, this was the first school that I went to that was off base. So it was funded by the county, and it was more poor than I had been used to. And so if it weren't for that environment, I wouldn't be who I am today or where I ended up going throughout my life, because, for most of my life on the military bases, everybody was for me. Everybody rooted for me, and there was no real adversity. But when I got to South Carolina, when they dropped me off that first day, that first week I got into a fight almost. I fought, more regularly than I did up to that point, because I was now finding out in my life for the first time what being Black in the South meant.
Right.
Because kids, the Black kids didn't like me or didn't trust me because I didn't speak like them. And then obviously the white kids stuck to themselves. So I was on an island for most of the part. The bus came from the military base. So most of the kids on the bus were people that lived around me. But the minute we got dropped off at school, it was
everybody go their separate ways.
Everybody went their separate ways, and they knew who to hang out with and who not to hang out with. So I'm standing in the middle, hey guys, and it wasn't going down. But basketball,
they bridged that gap.
But brought everything together. So then once I started playing basketball, all the kids from school started coming over to the house playing in the court across the street, and all the kids that were in the neighborhood started playing as well. So that's the thing that really brought those relationships and bridged that gap for me growing up. And it was like a godsend, because if I didn't play basketball, it would have been hell. I mean, it was, but as a 13-year-old kid, you figure it out, you learn, and you figure out who's for you and who's against you.
When did you first begin playing ball? Was it before you got to South Carolina, or was that something you picked up there?
Well, I started when I was in California. When I was 10, that's when I started playing organized. But what was beautiful about it being in the military is my dad played and my mom played. And, you know, when we were overseas, they had every base that we lived on, they had teams. So they were called semi-pro. And so my dad played football and he played basketball. So we went to all their games. You know, the closest I got to playing basketball was sitting in the bleachers trying to find quarters underneath the bleachers when people left. That was my hustle then. But I was there. I watched them play. You know, I watched them and I cheered them on. And, you know, they won championships in the Air Force. And my mom, you know, dad, they would travel together. It was similar to high school varsity where, you know, the women played and then the men played. So it was a great upbringing because I was around it. You know, there's a saying that, you know, 100 Black men say what they see, they will be. And ultimately, that's kind of, it emanated through who I was as a kid from my parents into me. So now you get to an age where my dad's still hooping, he's still going to the gym, and we go to the gym every day. So on Saturdays and Sundays, I was playing with all the grown men every day, you know, and that's what helped shape me as a young kid.
What year did you know that, like, man, I'm one of the country's best? Like, in high school, what year did you feel like, oh yeah, I'm one of the country's best? I'm not just only the best in South Carolina, I'm one of the best in the country.
You know, I don't think I ever got to that realization because South Carolina, I remember I went to Nike camp. And I think it was 92 when I was at Nike camp, and it was Rashid, Steph, Rashard Griffith. Like, you know, I mean, we had, Shy was representing Q. I'm telling you, when I got there, Shy was so strong. You had Antoine. You had, what's the guy that went to Louisville? Jason Osborne.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was so many dudes, and I'm coming down the South, and I'm like, for the first time, I'm seeing, you know, Chi-Town, New York, Philly, LA, and I'm like, man, I'm like nowhere on the map. But it was good because my eyes gave me something to realize, like, I got to be better, way better than these kids.
Set a goal.
Yeah, like, because I know what's out there. And it didn't scare me as much as some kids would be shocked by it. I was like, it gave me comfort to know that, you know, I can play to a level if I want to get better, but I just can't sit back and think because I'm the best in South Carolina, one of the best, that's good enough. And so I knew, like, I played in the tournament, and Stackhouse was there. This was in Myrtle Beach because he's from North Carolina. Yeah. And so the Stack was the man. He was like ranked number one in the country at the time. And I just knew he was the dude everybody was talking about. And as long as he was there, I knew I had work to do. And I think something like that for our kids to always dangle that carrot over them is what kind of holds them accountable. Like, no, you got some work to do. You know, this little dude right here, now you can see on YouTube and on Instagram, you see these dudes, like, you like, yo, let me show you. You still want to see? Let me show you the video. Let me show you what Blood did last night in the game. Still want to
we used to look at stats in the paper. Now they can see them on, they can see them on
like,
TV. You used to hear the streets of Smith and race.
It was like
that's all you had.
Hey, it was like you said, though, like and I'm from Chicago, so I wasn't, when I first got to go to camp, I didn't walk in the door like, yeah, I'm the best from there. Like, I came in like middle of the pack, not even at the top with the group of Chicago guys. So when we get to this, when I went to ABCD camp first, we get there and it's like, you know, you had Princeton, and it was like, man, you got Lamar Odom. This is just the camp where T-Mac went from unknown to number one in America and the world. Bruh, you talking about shell shock sitting there looking around like, oh shit, like, okay, like, motherfuckers could hoop. Like, I gotta go work. Like, I ain't even scratching the level of these dudes. It was like Khalid El-Amin, Greedy Daniels was a killer back then. Like, man, you had T-Mac, you had Elo. Like, that was the first time I seen Elo play. I said, we go to his court. This man 6'8", 6'9", coming down the court, scoop low, dribbling under his knees, and then skip like an underhand bounce pass or something. But I'm like, what is going on? Like, it was like a whole new world. It was like, when I got back to the crib, I was like, okay. Yeah, I was weak. Like, I'm weak. Like, I for real came home like, I'm weak, bro. Like, I gotta get to it. Like, I got a lot of work to do. So that camp definitely did that for me.
Yeah, and I think what the exposure is so huge because, two things come out of it. You realize that this ain't for you, or you saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Like,
you saw what you want.
Yeah.
You saw what you want. Like at my night camp when I was, it was Q-Nim was the man at my night camp when I went my sophomore year. And I seen Corey McGetty, I seen Jerron Rush and Colio Young, and we in the lunch line and they over there eating McDonald's and all kind of stuff. I'm like, man,
they
like,
top
yeah, that's the number
dude,
one,
right?
number two, number three player in the world. I'm like,
every day they walking in
damn.
with different phone posits.
I'm talking about, man, they was just looking like the man, and it was just like, man, I want to be at that level with them. Then I'm watching them play, watching Q-Nim play. And, just the competitive edge of that, just, like you say, you choose right there whether you want to compete for something or you want to take it serious or this just a game to you.
But here's the problem. When you see that, because we all can go back to our class and look at the ones that we admired, that we feared, that we revered because they were so nice. But the problem is at that level, those kids, they think that they're on this escalator just going to take them right to where they want to go, so they don't have to work anymore. But what they did was they put that fear into all of us. Q, they put that fear into you, so they set a bar for you to say, okay, well, I got to go back and I got to, this is on my mind. But those kids that are good, that are getting all the smoke at that age, they don't have to do anything in their mind, anything more, because I'm at the top. All I got to do is just keep killing these kids, and then I'm going to end up in college or go straight to the pros. And those are the ones that don't get better. Those are the ones that end up choosing the wrong school, and then all of a sudden you don't hear about them no more. And we, somebody like myself, because I was ranked top 25 in high school, but I didn't have any real fanfare or clout behind my name, because and it didn't matter to me. I was like, I'm gonna go where they're gonna build me, where I can play, where I can have fun. I wanted to play in the NBA, but I just wanted to I was thinking about jumping higher and getting better shooting, because I have a kid on my team now. I asked them the other day what their goals were, because I want them to put their goals out so they can't be afraid of them, so other people hear them. So when other people hear them, they help them accomplish those goals. And if you stray from that path, somebody's there to remind you, remember when you told me this? Well, you're failing at that.
How is it coaching your kids' team? How is that for you?
Well, when you go to watch your kids play and you're sitting up in the crowd in the stand, and I'm watching them this year, and they were horrible, during their season this year. It was like no effort, just doing silly things. And I found myself way more emotional in the stands than I wanted to. I'm just going to sit here and be cool. And I was cool for the most part, but I'm looking at my son and I'm yelling at him and telling him to do different things, because it's like, dude, go, because the ball would come up and he wouldn't run. I'm like, run, go get an easy bucket. So a couple of practices, I'd come there and be there after practice, and I'd work with the kids, and sometimes before the practice, without stepping on their coach's toes. So when the season ended, the coach asked me, he said he wanted to create an AAU team. Would you be willing to coach it? And I thought about it, and I said, yeah, I really would, because there's so much that they need to learn. So my philosophy, behind, teaching these kids is to get them to compete, every single practice. That's what I want to see, because they're at a private school. So they're void of adversity, for the most part. Most of our kids grow up in nice homes. They have swimming pools. They think every kid lives that way. But the three of us, we grew up differently. Exactly. We grew up with so little, and that's what created us to fight and scratch and claw. We were like, I'm not going to starve.
Right.
Now they don't have that adversity. So when the ball comes off the rim, I got kids on this team that I coach that look at the ball bounce. It's the most unnerving thing.
They don't get the reaction.
Yeah, they don't react. They don't go to the ball. I try and teach them that, some of the best players, in the world were great rebounders and made the Hall of Fame because of it.
Yes.
Rebounding is a talent. And so, my son has the fire, And I love that, so I could work with him. He's gotten better over the last 2 years, and he continues to get better. But it's trying to get all of them to play at that same level all the time. So every drill I do in practice is about competing. Some kids we play against want to do this worse than they want to breathe.
Right.
And these kids don't feel that way. And so trying to give them that adversity and that conflict in their mind when they play basketball. So when they go out there, they fight. Like my son one time, he turned the ball over, and this is during the season. So he turns the ball over trying to dribble. His left hand is strong. The guy steals and going another direction. He knocks it back, and the ball, it knocks loose and it rolls to half court. He crawls on all fours, and he beat the guy running to the ball, scooped the ball up, got it, and threw it to the guy. And he was hot. He turned into Hulk, but he was so mad that he lost the ball. And I told him after the game, I was like, man, look, because I criticized him first on everything he did wrong. And I said, but that play that you made at half court, if any college coach in America saw you make that play, they're going to say, I want that guy on my team.
Yeah.
And he was already pissed off and upset because they lost, they got beat. But then when I said that, I looked in the mirror and he had a grin on his face because it was something that stuck with him, that he realized, I see you on both ends.
Yeah.
I want to let you know when you made mistakes, but more importantly, I want you to see the work that you're putting in.
Yeah.
Really difference.
Yeah, see your accomplishment, what you did right. I was telling my son the same thing. You're supposed to play. He played key minutes in the game because the other two big men was hurt. And I was like, them 4 minutes at the end of the game, they needed that.
Mm-hmm.
They needed that out of you. You helped the team out. They needed that. If they was playing the right way, they wasn't in foul trouble, you wouldn't even been playing. That's team ball.
Yeah, but the other thing too, because we had to learn this the hard way. When it's a blowout either way, whether you're beating somebody by 20 or getting smacked by 20, and when you're a younger coach put you in a game, you're like, man, this is some bullshit. I don't want to go in a game this is where you now have to show the coach that you deserve more minutes.
Yeah.
That you operate the team, that you can run as offense, that you can play defense. And far too often kids look at that garbage time as disrespects. They want to play when everybody else is out there. No, you gotta get this now.
This is my time, my moment.
I told my son, there's been a guy been on my team since 4th grade, and he never played, but he was on my team since elementary school, all the way through high school. And he only played in blowouts, but he was committed to the team. Good teammate. He played on the team, and that's just what it's about.
Hey, I'm gonna use that, but I'm gonna say it was my team. And my team is that, because sometimes you need lessons like that to be able to tell them, because the stories that we have far too often is how your parents used to say, when I was your age, we used to walk to school 2 miles, 3 miles, but trying to take them back down that pathway to show them the adversity that we had, every single day. Because here's the thing that I see the most of that drives me insane. The minute practice is over with, or even during practice, I let them go get some water. These dudes in the beginning, bingo.
Grab their phone.
And then you caught it.
Grab their phone.
Listen, I gave them the water break. They went, y'all know how, Q, you know how it was at DePaul. When you get a water break, you go run to the cooler and you grab water and you run back to the court. You don't go over there and start swapping stories and talking about what you did. These dudes were sitting they sat down, picked their phones up, I blew the whistle. I was like, yo, this ain't social hour. You get some water, you come right back. And I
was just at Allen Iverson All-American game and gave them a water break from the practice. These guys just ran and all of them grabbed their phone. And Bobby got on their ass so bad, man, y'all don't want this. Y'all can't want this if a water break is phone time.
And I tell them, when I played and I had a cell phone, everybody knew where I was. So y'all know how I was in the locker room. If that phone rang during a meeting, that was a fine. So when the phone rang, man, who the hell is calling me during the meeting? And then everybody was like, that ain't my phone. That ain't me. And that's what I tell these kids is you got to prioritize. Don't let that phone distract you. And, your bed is your enemy right now. You rely on that bed and you want to stay in the bed. That's your enemy. That's what's going to prevent you from, maximizing your greatest potential and realizing who you really can be, because sleep is great when you need to heal, but when you got to get up, you got to get up.
Straight up.
I like that. I'm trying to figure this out. It's only one explanation how a high school kid that worked at Ryan's Steakhouse got the nickname Candyman. It could have only been because of sweet jump shot, right?
That was it. You called it. You called it. Yeah. And when the season started, I was working at Ryan's and I washed dishes. So once the season started, I could only work one day a night because I had practice and then we had games, and that was Wednesday. I worked one night a week on Wednesdays, and I made $21. And, you know, $21 as a senior in high school back then, I had my lunch money, you know, I put a little gas in, a little snack on the petrol.
Hey, it stretch on out. That 21 stretch for every penny. That's going to stretch on out.
I managed the hell out of that $21. and working for it gave me even greater appreciation for it. So, but yeah, that's what it came from, because, you know, my announcer at the time, he said, I wanted to figure out a nickname for you because you just, you know, everything you do is so sweet on the court, and your jump shot is sweet, and that's where it ended up coming from, the Candyman. So they rolled that out. We won a state championship that year, and then I tried to hide from it when I got to college because, you know, you want to start over on the whole new, slate. You know, why they call you Candyman? Don't worry about that. You know, it's like when these kids come from high school into college, and they wear all their all-star gear. You know, like this is, you know, look at me. I got the McDonald's this. And I got
don't matter no more, young fella.
Yeah, go on, put that to the side.
Yeah, you got to start over.
Yeah.
Could it have been anybody except for UConn? Could somebody else almost get you?
Yeah, Alabama I committed to.
Oh.
Yeah, I committed to. I went there. That was my first visit, and I had such a good time. And, you know, the coach, the assistant coach pressured me into the commitment, you know, pulled into a parking lot before he dropped me off. And, you know, he kind of attacked me and said that, you know, I need to make a responsible decision. Alabama's the place. And if I don't choose now, I got other people that will choose. By the time you leave here, the spot will be gone. So I said yes to him. I had a good time. And then when I got back, I had a coach that said, listen, Alabama might be the place for you, but you won't know if you were right or wrong if you don't take these other visits. And so I went to
That was the first visit?
That was my first visit.
Mm.
And so then I went to UConn, and I was like, man, like I love UConn, but then I knew I loved UConn more than I loved Alabama. And one of the differences was, you know, at Alabama, we had to sneak into the football game. And at UConn, I sat at the 50-yard line. You know, and think about that. Like, they took care of me at UConn, and I said to myself, I was like, I want to be at a school that's oriented towards basketball, not football, where they're going to make sure that they make you the top priority, budget-wise, you know, travel, just the whole look of the program. And you know, my third visit was Kentucky, just to see.
I went to UK.
Yeah, and
I went to UK too.
Yeah, Kentucky is like almost. They almost
league. They feel like the league. They're like, that's the league. You go in there, they got slushy machines. They got slushy machines swirling around Gatorade. I was like, man, what's going on around here?
Listen, when I went to the Midnight Madness and I walk on the court and they start chanting my name, and I started looking up, I was like, who they call them talking to me? And I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, oh no. I ain't that good yet. I ain't that good. Like, you call them, I chant my name. They done got somebody in the crowd, like, y'all got a megaphone, and they're like, okay, now we got Allen coming in. See, they got the student body and the alumni on the payroll, like metaphorically, because they know when a recruit comes, they let that recruit know.
They tell them.
We go in for all ours, and, you know, you might be, you know, 75 in the country, but you come to visit Kentucky, we're going to make you feel like you belong here regardless.
Number one.
That's how it was when I went to Kansas. I don't know if I ever said this, like, out. Like, when I went to Kansas, I went for, you know, same thing, Midnight Madness. And, man, you walk in, I forgot, I think it was me, Jeff Boshi, Joe Prisabella, and Jerron Rush all on the same visit. Now you imagine going in Allen Fall Fieldhouse on Midnight Madness and the whole building. You know how they do the Rock Chalk Jayhawk? They did the Rock Chalk Jayhawk, but then they said Q Ridge. Boy, I was in that thing like, oh shit. Like what? Like the whole, I'm talking about, boy, that was one of the craziest chills I ever got. Like that whole building, they did that for all of us. I was like, yo, this is crazy. Like that was the one visit that, like, if it wasn't for my coach and my parents and everybody telling me, like, listen, when we sat down, like, you're not committing on no visits. I don't care what. You're going to always come home. We're going to collect ourselves. If it wasn't for that and me agreeing to that from the outset, I'd have committed on that visit. I remember sitting in that office, like, when I was talking to Roy Williams, man, he was like, yeah, so he was trying to figure out how close. I mean, I think I told that man I was like 98% sure, like, I'm ready to, I'm just not doing it because I can't do it right now. But if I was like I had to get home and collect myself, but like, you right, you get to some of that stuff and it'd be like for a 17-year-old kid, that thing was overwhelming, boy. Hey, Kansas I was this close, I ain't gonna lie.
Well, it's two things that kids have to think about. And I tell, every young person this: if you can, get away from home, so you figure out who you are, and you have to work to get home, or your parents have to work to get to you. So you have to learn to rely on other people in your new community, wherever that is. But we're asking 17-year-old kids to learn to make a decision on where they should be for the rest of their lives. And that's the, like I said in He Got Game, that's the hardest decision, or they said it's the hardest decision you're ever going to make in your life, because how do you know what's good for you 4 years down the line or 8 to 10 years down the line?
Man.
You make decisions for the moment, like where your girlfriend is, being close to home, a school that's good that made it to the tournament at that moment. But there's so many more bigger questions at the time, like what is my playing time going to look like? Can I fit in with this group of guys? Is the coach going to be there for a long time, and is he going to push me to be my best? That's the thing about the UConn with Calhoun. He said he was the only one that didn't guarantee me playing time. He said, listen, if you work for it, we're going to put you in a situation where you can grow and you can get better and you can achieve some of the goals you want in your life, but we're not going to give you anything. But other coaches told me, well, I'll make you an NBA player. I know that you ain't going to make it. I got to do it. And you got to hire. And so that's the thing that we had to get these young boys to understand. Like, don't make these prisoner of the moment decisions, because those decisions don't age well. Who you are 10 years from now is going to be totally different. So what is it? It's like one of my biggest regrets is what my major was. I majored in communications. Like I would have done like architecture, engineering, landscape management, something like that, because I've always appreciated.
You know yourself now.
Yeah. And back then you don't know, and so they do us a disservice because they throw us in something real fast just to appease us and get us playing. And, you guys probably don't know this, but like I'm in class right now. Like my semester just ended because I got 4 more classes till I get my degree. And, now I'm seeing, from this angle, how hugely important it is to do something that you like, that you love. Yeah. So when you get done, you have a degree that you could take and say, you know what? I'm going to start my own company because I have an education in engineering, so I can, get further with education.
You see how much more you can accomplish.
It's fascinating now with online learning, because you can right now you can go Phoenix, Southern New Hampshire, DePaul, and find a class and get 1 credit. It could be like about saving the environment. Like there's so much information out there. And here's the thing about us as athletes. We're very knowledgeable on the game of basketball. One of the issues that we dealt with over this past year with Black Lives Matter movement, all these inequities that have taken place in our government with the election. I was taking a 2020 elections class as the election was happening. So very informative. But what happens is when this whole thing happened between us and China, we we wanted to only say then that we want to only take basketball questions. You know, we weren't skilled and proven enough to handle that because we didn't have the information. But then in the same token, we were telling people that we were more than just basketball players and it's not just shut up and dribble. Mm. So this is where we have to educate ourselves on issues of government, issues of community, issues of world affairs, because we do have involvement in all of those things. And so as a basketball player, we don't get further education. Like, you've been on the bus. How many times guys don't read and aren't getting better, but we know the shit out of pick and rolls and fast breaks and paying and breaking down game film. But we have to continue to read, pay attention to current events, world events, local events, and figure out how that can help us. Because the more you become better as a person, that's when you become a better athlete. Because you can think. Your conflict resolution is a lot. It grows. So when you do go through things on the court, you learn how to be more diplomatic. You learn when to attack, when to retreat. But that's dealing with a lot of things off the court as well. So you got to practice that stuff. Just like shooting, you got to practice those relationship building situations off the court so they do help you on the court.
What you think about the guys like now, like the guys in today's game that's really speaking out more, telling their feelings, telling them about stuff that bothers them about the world or what's going on that we used to do back in the day when we was, playing in the league?
Yeah, and that's exactly to the point that I was just saying, that they have to be educated, on the subject matter. Like, as I sit here as an NBA player, and I get paid a lot of money. When I go to play a game of basketball, my job is to come to work every single day and honor the money that has been given to me, support my family, show up for my teammates, be an ambassador to the league, to the team, to the city I play on. So at no point can you sit back and say, I don't feel like playing today, or too much stuff is going on around the world, I'm not focused on basketball. When you watch a game, when you flip the TV on, one thing that fans, people who follow the game do not respect, understand, have a grasp of is what it took for us to get to that moment when the TV came on, and you see your favorite team or players run out of that tunnel onto that court. Like, it's so much that goes into it, from dealing with family matters to getting treatment, to practicing, to warming up, to, arguments in the locker room, like to meetings, like, it's so much. But then the minute you run out on the floor, you got to put that aside and go hoop.
The Big East. You in UConn, you in Big East, and the Big East is hitters. You got AI, Kerry Kittle, John Wallace. Like, you got this. So you really got to prove yourself in one of the toughest conferences in college basketball. How was the conference in the Big East in your first years coming into that type of conference of the history?
So when I left South Carolina, one of the reasons for me going to Connecticut was because of the Big East, because I had an opportunity to play in all the big cities and play primetime basketball. Big East was on Big Monday. Syracuse, Georgetown, like, man.
Yeah, I watched all y'all games.
Yes, sir.
All y'all games every week after practice. I'm in that job.
Listen, like, my first Big East game was against Seton Hall, and we played at the Meadowlands. Now, we're about 2.5 hours from Stores to Seton Hall. We drive into New York, but we cross over the George Washington Bridge, so we don't go right into Manhattan. Manhattan, we go over. And I was an 18-year-old kid, and I was looking out the window the whole time at the city. I had never been before, and this to me was like, I'm coming from MTV Raps, New York Undercover, like everything about the city, like all rap at the time was coming from New York. Like, it was crazy. I was looking at this like, that's it right there. And then just watching it. I put it on Hot 97. I caught it from New Jersey, in my hotel room, and I just looked out the window the whole time. And to me, it gave me the dream to go out and do something more. It's like the opportunities are limitless. Coming from South Carolina, and now I'm in New York City.
Right.
Playing my first Big East game. Like I'm like, this is what your dreams are made of, right here. To be able to be in this position. And so I think coming from, that first year at UConn, like Calhoun had us waking up at 5:30 in the morning, lifting weights, like running 3 miles around the campus. Like every Saturday we had to run this hill, and we had to run it 10 times. It was like the hill was like up and down. It was a mile, and it was hell. And I had never worked this hard before in my life. We had these tests, these lactic acid buildup tests, where you had the rope tied to your back and somebody else did, and you had to do sprints until it tightened, and then you ran back. Like I'm doing something, as a kid, I was physically capable, but I was pushing my limits, and I loved it because I was doing things I had never done before, and I was growing. I was growing, and every day was a new challenge. The one thing that I said to myself in my dorm room was I wasn't going to drink and I wasn't going to hang out, because this is tough burning at both ends. Calhoun wasn't playing around. And, I had guys that I remember the next day we'd have practice at 6 a.m. Guys be out drinking and they couldn't hack it. And I'll be over there dunking. And so what happened was, once we got into the season, I remember the first game of the year we played against Towson State in Pennsylvania. And the second game of the year we played Virginia. And Howard Dean, remember Harold Dean? Harold Dean was a point guard, and Harold and I had known each other over the years, just through the circuit. And so after the game, we were talking. We beat him by 20, and I was a leading scorer. That was the first time my name was on Sports Center, as your name's up there, and it said who led the team in scoring. And Harold said to me, he's like, "Man, y'all," he said, "y'all are tough. What y'all doing? Like y'all running and pressing like that, like." And that was the first time I realized all the work that we put in preseason was paying off, because these dudes couldn't keep up with us. And we were so conditioned. Like we ran hard, like it was running from drill to drill. Like it was a military mindset. And so once I got into a game every time, I didn't worry about whether or not I could play basketball or whether I was going to be good enough, because I was so prepared. I shot ad nauseum, like, working on running in transition. Like once I got out there, it was like, just throw the ball up, we were gone. Scoring in transition around the basket. So I never, ever questioned my skill, because I knew I was putting the work in.
How was it for you in the year in 95, 96 in college? You win Big East Player of the Year with all of those different, talents. You had AI, Kittles, John Wallace, to name a few. Like, you win Big East Player of the Year. How was that for you that year?
When I think back on it, I'm truly fortunate to say that I won it with that assemblage of talent, because,
right.
You had Felipe Lopez, you had Danier Abrams.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, like Danier was getting buckets. Providence was loaded. You still, don't forget, you had Lawrence, Poetry, and Moten.
Oh, L. Moten from Syracuse, boy. Whoo.
So guys like that, like there was so much individual talent, and it made for, especially for fans to watch, it made for exciting basketball. But that year, really, between AI and myself, like we went head to head in the tournament, and I'm telling you, it was scary but fascinating at the same time, because I remember coming through down what street is that? It's Broadway, I think, in New York, where the Garden is on. And I remember seeing our names up on the marquee. Ray Allen versus Allen Iverson, and I was sitting there thinking, I was like, man, like, normally I would panic, but I know what to do here. I know, just play basketball. Like, it's not like I got to give a speech on rocket science.
Right.
I know how to do what I'm about to do. So sometimes you just got to block it out, because we had Kerry and I had some huge battles.
Yeah.
We had one game in Connecticut where Big Monday we were supposed to play, but we had a snowstorm, so it got moved to Tuesday. And they weren't gonna put another game on, and everybody wanted to see
Right, that.
because we were like 1 and 2 in the country at the time. But they just had a roster, and I appreciated Kerry's his skill, because that's one of the ideas, and I teach my kids this. Kids, when they see another kid in the playground that's dope, they go in the other direction.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid of that smoke. Yeah. And they want to go to the court where they're the best.
They superior. They superior.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, go to the dudes. Go to that dude.
There you go.
Everybody's better than you.
Yeah.
That action.
That's how you get there. And I remind everybody about Jay Kidd and Gary Payton, how Gary used to beat up on Jay, and if Jay wanted to play, he had to buckle up and play ball. And so that's how I felt about the Big East. Like, Kerry was there, AI was there. Like, when I played against them, it wasn't just, I want to win, but it's not a matchup between the both of us. But our teams, I think we probably had seven or 8 teams in the dance that year, because everybody was hooping.
Everybody was balling.
Everybody was hooping. and right then is like, you learn, like, when the team wins, everybody receives some type of reward or a great benefit from the success of that individual, that team. We had Daron Sheffer got drafted, Travis Knight got drafted, Donnie Marshall got drafted.
Donnie Marshall.
Yeah. So that's it. So I learned early, like, let's win, and then the chips are gonna fall where they fall.
Hey, man, shout out to Kerry Kittles, man. No lie.
High socks, baby.
He had me wearing
he had me
wearing the high socks. No bull.
Yeah.
He had me. Then I remember when he used to wear the one last sock and no other one looked like Kerry Kittles had the swag back in the day. Real talk.
My favorite draft class is the 96 draft class.
Ooh, y'all boys had a special.
And to look back on it now, since you retired, to look back on it and just to see all them hitters y'all had on y'all draft class. How is that to just be a part of one of them, probably the best draft class ever to be created? Yeah, arguably, it's a little argument, but y'all to be part of that argument is dope.
Well, yeah, and I've always looked at 84 and I thought, how amazing that class was.
Yeah.
But as I started to look at 84 and I looked at 96.
Top to bottom?
Top to bottom. But I'll even throw something out there that needs recognition is Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace didn't get drafted.
He got acknowledgement in the little thing, though. Like, he obviously back then, he wasn't in the picture with y'all, none of that, but yeah.
Yeah, but Ben Wallace he was just announced the finalist for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that he had such an impact in the time that he played based on where he came from speaks volumes to, that class, those freshmen coming into, or rookies coming into the NBA that year. But, you when you talk top to bottom, Derek Fisher has 5 rings. Steve Nash has 2 MVPs. AI has an MVP. We have countless All-Stars and Olympians, and now Hall of Famers. So it's certainly produced a lot. And the interesting thing too is, I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but just go back and look at your draft class and look at the one before and then look at the one after, and you remember all these players and guys that you look up to. And then what you realize is each draft class only has like 2 or 3 players that you remember. Like, that put in work. Some guys, you remember their names, you might have remembered them in college or whatever, but guys that actually put in
Truly.
work, there's only like 2 to 3,
real talk, guys
per class. So when you talk about a class that produces so many Hall of Famers, like, I don't know, I could take credit for it all I want because I was a part of it, but I did my part. Because the thing that drove me crazy, and I told this, I wrote this in my book. I wrote a book 3 years ago. It's called From the Outside. And I always used to say this, Slam magazine, on the cover on the inside of that cover, they had the accolades of most likely to win MVP, win championships. And my name was nowhere but one spot. And it said most likely to fade into obscurity.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so, me being a somewhat well-read young man, I was like, I think I know what obscurity means, but let me look it up.
Let me look it up to make sure.
I need to be sure. And for the first 4 or 5 years of my career, I did not want to do any interviews with Slam because it pissed me off so much that y'all just kind of wrote me off. Like all this that you could have said, and you said I. But the truth be told, after that, I realized that that's what we need. That's what I needed at the time because you
motivation.
Yeah, back to what we were talking about in high school. You get comfortable and think that you made it, and then things are going to be easy from here on out. That's when you slip. You can't get comfortable. You get comfortable, and then all of a sudden, that's when your skill sets start to diminish. And so that adversity is what all of our children need because all these kids are like, man, I'm gonna make every team that didn't pick me, pay. Like the fact that you got drafted 19th might be the reason that you became an MVP or an All-Star or an Olympian.
Because you went to a team that can handle it instead of a young team.
Yeah, and if you got drafted number 4, that might have sent you into a different trajectory that wouldn't allow you to accomplish the things that you accomplished because you came in with the cool man strut, and we've seen a lot of players do that. So
when you got drafted and you're one of those guys, I just was watching your draft class documentary, right? And so seeing that, it showed me one of the few other sides of when you're actually at the draft and you're getting drafted. I'm watching you when you were a guy who got drafted to a team you didn't work out for, got traded, and it was like your experience didn't seem just like, hey, I'm joyous. I'm like, it was kind of like seemed like confusion. Like I'm trying to figure what the hell is going on, figure it out, and what's really going on. So like, walk me through your draft experience. Like you obviously you got to walk across that stage and shake David Stern's hand, which we all dream of, but yours came with a caveat because even in that moment, you really didn't understand what was going on because you didn't work out for this team and all of these different things were going on. So take me through your draft experience when you got a chance to hear your name called by David Stern.
That year, Philly had the first pick, and then Toronto, Vancouver, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Boston. So they projected me as a top 4 pick. So I went to Philly. I worked out with them, but they were going to pick AI. That was a wasted trip. I went to Toronto. I met with Isaiah Thomas, who was the GM, president at the time. And I just had a meeting with him. I didn't have to work out anything. I went to Vancouver. That was my hardest workout. They put you through agility training, lifting, shooting, everything. And so day before the draft, I'm out in LA and they called me in. Minnesota wanted me to want to meet with me. And I was like, why am I going to Minnesota? Milwaukee was probably one of the hardest ones because I landed in Chicago. There was weather. Chicago is not the place to fly into in the summertime. It's always some weather coming in. So I waited 4 hours. I got to Milwaukee. I had to play with Chris Robinson one-on-one. He had just finished, and then I had to play Mike Dunleavy one-on-one. And so I didn't know I'm playing this old guy. What am I supposed to be doing here? Like I'm playing this guy and he's trying to determine if I'm good or not.
Right.
So I had a great meeting with the owner there. And then I went to LA to do some interviews, and then I'm flying back to meet my family in New York. And Minnesota says, hey, we'd love to meet with you before draft. And I was like, no, thank you. So come draft, I was like, so all the teams that want me or see me, I figured that I was going to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
before the draft, I leave my hotel. Red Auerbach and ML Carr calls me and says, listen, if you slip to 6, we're going to take you with our pick. I was like, okay, cool. I need to go to Boston. I was like, I don't know what the chances of that are. So come the 4th pick, when Minnesota or Milwaukee picked Stephon, I knew that Milwaukee was high on me and they picked Stephon. So I was like, I'm going to Boston.
Right.
And the minute the Minnesota pick comes up, the cameras come to me and I'm confused. I'm
Right.
like, why are they coming? Why are they picking me? Like, I don't. And then I knew they had J.R. Ryder. So why are they picking me at the 2 spot, which I didn't know that I was being used in a trade, which ended up getting Andrew Lane, and myself in the 2-player swap for Stephon Marbury. That's why Milwaukee took him off the table, because they knew how bad Minnesota wanted Steph. Yeah. So you learn those things later on after you've gone through it and you understand the business side of it. And I wish I knew it then so I could have enjoyed the process more. We've been on such an incredible journey, and, to be here on the other side of it and to be able to talk about it and share our stories, it truly, between you, myself and you, both of you, I think I can speak for both of you when I say, and I tell all the kids this, that all of my dreams have come true. And that right there is an amazing feeling to have. Now, I still continue to dream, and I can continue to have aspirations to do other things. But as a kid, the things that I've done up to this point, were everything and more than I could ever imagine.
No, I agree, man. I think that too is another thing that, not at the outset or not at the start, but in doing this podcast, that's something that I've learned about myself, about both of us actually, that we are examples of for not only players that have played in the league, or guys coming behind us, younger guys coming up, or just kids in general, that life ain't gonna always be perfect. Life wasn't perfect for me or Black. And we done both been through the ringer. I'm sure you've been through your ups and downs, regardless of how much fame, status, accolade, anything. We all humans, and we go through what we go through, and we not perfect. But I feel like, me and D Miles with this pod, you and your life is the example of everything you accomplished. Like, we walking examples of, regardless of what you go through, like you said, if you persevere and you continue on, that you could get to the other side of it and do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And still have a good, successful, productive life. You know what I'm saying? Like, me and Black been through the ringer, but Lord knows we don't look like what we've been through. And it's like, it's a blessing for us to be able to be here and do all of these things that we're able to do. Sit here and talk to, we sitting here talking to Jesus Shuttlesworth right now. I'm going to keep saying that, because this is like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care what nobody say. Them retro 13s is the Jesus Shuttlesworth. Yeah. them the Denzels. You feel me? Like it.
I watched that movie
every
day.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you identify with the culture in a way that some people can't, no matter what happened. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you being in that movie was like, what? He got gang. Like, when that dropped, bro, what was that like for you to be, like, did you even know you couldn't, there's no way going into the movie you knew that it would become what it's become and mean what it's meant to the culture and all that. But just what was your feelings when you got the call that, hey, Spike Lee wants you to be in the movie?
And Denzel in it.
With Denzel Washington.
I didn't know any of that leading up to it. And it started because we're playing in the Garden early this season. Allen Houston killing me. So Spike.
H2O.
Yeah. People don't know about H2O.
They don't know about H2O.
I say that on his shoes.
That was one of the coldest nicknames ever, ain't it? That one had H2O. That's shit.
That jump shot was water.
I said, shit.
Yeah. So he's killing me. He might have 14 or 15 and a half. And, Spike is like, you going to guard Allen tonight? What you going to do? And so, end of the season, Allen probably had like 8 or 9, wasn't doing what he did before. And then Spike was over there trying to, get my attention. I was ignoring him because I thought he was going to go in on me. And then he finally got my attention. He told me, he said, "Hey, I'm shooting this movie. When your season's over with, come audition." And I was like, "Bet." So I gave him my information. I was just in Connecticut. So I drove in every week, and I started doing these auditions. And I remember the first audition I did with Nicole Ari Parker.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had to do these love scenes. And then I did a love scene with Sally Richardson. So I was coming in and I was like,
hold on.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're auditioning for the role of Lala. So I'm over here.
And this before anybody is anybody, and you just
we doing kissing scenes and all that
Sugar
stuff.
Ray. Sugar Ray.
So the third time I come in, Denzel's there.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like?
I guess when you come from, being in the NBA and you're around all these other, I've been around Michael Jordan. So
yeah.
That aura right there is
duly noted.
That's
Bruce Leroy when he got the girl going on.
Right there. I already know.
That's why when
okay, duly noted.
Yeah, you've been around that aura, so it is no different. You've been around people.
Yeah.
And seeing celebrities come to you play. So
fair point.
But he comes in the room, he's got this afro. I don't really have an understanding of what's going on or what's about to go on. And so we start doing talking and he's so great. I think one of the greatest attributes a person can have a part of their character is to allow other people to feel comfortable around them, to disarm a person.
Yes.
And that's how Denzel is. That's how he was, because he immediately, started talking about basketball and shooting the ball and just talking about my game and asking 50 million questions. And it was never about him. And so he gave me a place. He gave me a space to be able to have a voice and to talk to him. And it wasn't like, some people you get to and they start talking and you can tell they don't want to listen to you or nothing that you're talking about whatsoever. And that's fine too. But the people that are your type of people. And Denzel from Jump Street was that guy that always, we'd be sitting on the set and then he'll start talking about, he's like, "Yo, tell me about Big Dog. What's Big Dog like?" And we're about to shoot a scene and then we're talking basketball. I had an acting coach. My acting coach was like, "You gotta stop talking to him."
What you want me to do?
Yeah, she wanted me to be in character because in this scene I'm supposed to be mad at him. So she didn't think I could have a conversation with him and then be mad at him. I was like, I know how to compartmentalize, and that was him too. He would sit there and he would be talking and all of a sudden he was on the minute the camera was rolling. I equated he and Spike to a great point guard because what they would do is they would put you in a situation and Spike would do it real fast. He would ask you for certain things and he expects you to hit it. But Denzel would just throw it at you. I had one of the funniest guys on the set was Roger Guinevere-Smith, Big Willie, light skinned dude,
right.
do the right thing. He was in character the whole time on set. I mean, we'd be sitting down having lunch and he'd come over there doing lines. We'd be sitting there eating and he never left character.
Some people
and so what you find out, from all the people on set, everybody is different in their acting styles. And so for me, that helped guide me because, the first scene, and check this out, we had a Brand Jordan meeting in Soho on the morning we had, because we were talking about a bunch of gear and how to do this and that, whether it was 97. So Finley was there, Ben Baker was there. I think Derek Anderson was there. Yeah. And so Spike asked me, he said, "Hey, we're shooting this scene in Coney Island tonight and we need more players. Ask the guys if they want to come down and shoot the scene." So I told these dudes, I said, "Yo, I'm doing this movie. if y'all want to be in a movie, come down. We're shooting the scene in Coney Island. You know, when guys hear that at first, they're like, oh man, I'm good. Michael Finley seen the movie come out. He's like, man, why you ain't tell me? I said, I did tell you.
Damn, man. Damn.
Yeah. But Vin Baker, he came. And Vin Baker was in, you hear him in the opening scene, they call him Big Man, and we're running up and down the floor where it's about 3 a.m. We're shooting on Coney Island. And the funny thing with Vin, he told me, he goes, man, when the movie came out, like I'm telling everybody that I'm in the movie. So I get to the theater, we're running late, and I get in there and I'm watching the whole time and I didn't never see my part.
That's crazy.
And so he called me, he's like, man, I ain't in the movie. I was like, you are in the movie. You're in the beginning. So he brings some people to the movie, and he's in the beginning, but he missed his part because it's the opening scene. So we played basketball. We were in the projects. It was every single day. It gave me a greater appreciation for movies.
Long hours.
Yeah, every time we would shoot these scenes. It was interesting because the people that work on the movie, like do lighting, continuity, like all these different positions, they come up to me and say, how did you learn how to do all that stuff? Because they know nothing about the NBA. They assumed I was an actor.
Right.
And so they were like, how did you learn how to do all this stuff? I was like, oh, just over the years, I just, taught myself. And a lot of times the pressure was on me because midday and at night, from lunch to dinner, there was craft services, so there was always food. We only got to eat when I finished the scene, so they're waiting for me to knock the scene out so we can go. So I'm over here, everybody's like, click, hurry your ass up,
do your thing, motherfucker, so we can
we need to eat. So it was certainly, I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I was sad that I did one other movie, but I hadn't been able to do anything else. I mean, timing, I still have an agent that brings me scripts and I read stuff because I would love to do more movies in the next couple of years. Because remember, Samuel Jackson, Morgan Freeman, they started late in their I think Morgan Freeman was like in his 50s when he first got his first role.
And
so
he that dude too.
Yeah. So you guys, you have your agent, like tell them, because remember, Hollywood is about casting. You find a look that they're going for, and like Common is doing a lot of stuff now. In with movies and TV. So it's
Black did. He done been in a few movies, Denzeling it up and doing his thing. We done been on shows. I done been out there a little bit with her. We got a little Ryan.
But that was all from seeing you on the screen, man. Like I say, that movie, I watched that movie so much because I felt like I related to it. It was like it was my life. It was. Like from the colleges, from the everything, it just felt like the people around. It's just like it was like my story. Then you had Jordan.
Time out. Let me time out. I would be remiss for myself and for the fans just listening. We need to know the Big U college visit with Rick Fox. Was there any parallels in real life on any of your videos? You said UConn took care of you. Did you have a Rick Fox on that visit taking care of you?
No, unfortunately, I did not. But you and I know, and other guys know that is, part of the program. Like we dealt with that. It
can be.
Yeah, it didn't happen to me. I think that at the time I wasn't a big enough recruit, but. Coaches tell these guys, and you've seen it in a couple programs. Like a couple coaches got fired because they had prostitution on their campus to try to get recruits to come to their school. So
that's definitely true.
That's the thing. When Spike and I went over the script and in pre-production, we went through this whole thing. We talked about everything that a young guy can experience. We took it in every angle. We exacerbated it so people understood at an extreme level what you face. Some guys it's the agent, some guys it's the girlfriend, sometimes it's the relatives, sometimes it's the high school coach, sometimes it's the brother or sister. In this case, for Jesus, it was all those things.
Yeah. So in filming those takes, was it a lot of takes in those particular scenes, or you was just one shot and you got up out of there?
Which scene?
The scene, the dorm room scene.
Yeah, that took 8 hours.
Wow. Wow.
That's why.
Victory! I'm just saying, man, we gotta give people what they want. I know people want to know about that. Ever since I ever saw that movie, that's all I've been ever wanting to say. Like, man, boy, I know that shit. Shooting that movie scene was just crazy. Like, just being, you a young dude, like, please, like, that was crazy. I remember seeing that shit. I'm like, what? I'm like, this is crazy.
Well, let me back you up. So what Spike did was, normally on set you have an A camera and you have a B camera. And so around the set, there's all these monitors so you can see what's happening on the set. So what he did was he closed the set so nobody could see. You could only hear.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was only one camera, and he was in another room watching from that one camera. And then he gave me the option. He gave me this. It was like a strap, like a jock strap.
Yeah.
And he said, and I asked him, I said, what's gonna happen here? Like,
straight up.
Yeah, is this about to go down? Like, I don't like,
is this okay?
Yeah. He looked at me and he said, he's like, listen, whatever you guys do, this
might be the greatest moment in our podcast.
Yeah. So we started seeing, and then we're just sitting there, and it was all like, we didn't, we acted it, it was great. It just, and in the scene we got what we needed to get to show
the visual, which I need to show.
Yeah, what we wanted everybody to see and understand. But what was fascinating was when I walked off set, everybody's like, man, my guy. All they got was the audio. So like, man, my brother.
Hey, Denzel hit you with the my man. Hey, this what I wanted to go back at before we moved on from the He Got Game, because this was a big part of my whole life and upbringing. Like, at what point did you realize that it had that type of an impact on the culture, and it was the cultural phenom that it was? Because literally, like you said, y'all took it to the extremes with everything, but like everything in that movie, somewhere on some level, on some end of the spectrum, it was truth that was birthed from. You know what I'm saying? I think that's why the culture really relates to it, because so many of us grew up in different neighborhoods, and we got the big willies that's like the dudes that's looking out, or whatever you want to call it. Then you got girls, then you got different type of agents or street agents that when you become good, they want to get by you. You got different
family members,
friends that want to try and expose all of those different things. So at what point did you see like, damn, this really touched our people? Like, we relate with this. Like, and when I say our people, I mean like the basketball players, the 5,000 of us that made it to the league. Like, all of us on some level have dealt with all of those things that you dealt with in that movie. And that's where those ideas and those whole motives come from. Like, at what point did this become like, this is like bigger than I thought it was ever going to be?
I don't know if I ever understood the magnitude of He Got Game. I remember we were playing in Milwaukee that next year, and when we ran out on the floor, they played the theme song. And I was like, yo, that's dope. Like, just to run out to it, because I felt like it was a moment of recognition that they were showing. And it wasn't like, normally in Milwaukee, they used to play Laverne and Shirley when we used to run out. I was like, man, screw y'all. But they played that. And every day I get called Jesus. So I knew,
like, listen, that's one of the coldest shits ever, dog.
One of the coldest nicknames in the history of the game is Jesus Shuttlesworth. That go down in the history of the game. Top 5, definitely.
Yeah, and no matter where I go, whether I'm in this country or around the world, people always will say, call me Jesus. And at first you're like, I played some golf with Alfonso Ribeiro, and people walk around, they call him Carlton all the time, and he's like, James Alfonso. And so for me at first, it was like trying to get used to people calling me Jesus. I wouldn't answer to it, but now it's like, it's just one of those things that it's cemented in stone now. And so it truly is, it's like one of those films that when you revisit the 90s, it'll be something that for us, athletes, it'll be something that will always kind of speak to the times of which we grew up.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those joints for me, because like I feel like anybody who see that movie and anybody is the top athlete of any, I don't care whether it's basketball, football, baseball, whatever it is, like Jesus Shuttlesworth is that athlete, especially in today's game with all of this damn social media and these guys getting 1 million followers before. Every one of them kids are Jesus Shuttlesworth. They are being pulled and tugged in 1 billion different directions, taunted with money, fame, or whatever you think before they even get there. And that's exactly what, like, when you getting taken to the agent house, and this, like, everybody didn't deal with that, whether it was being sent jewelry at your dorm or being sent money or being offered money and by a relative or a friend or, a teammate or whatever it may be. We all didn't experience that. That's what made that, I feel like that's what made that movie so, so relatable to everybody, because, earlier, like, not so much, I can't speak on what's going on now, but I know in them 90s and them early 2000s, that's when it was like, in them 80s too, that's when it was like people was paying like they way, it was, everything was going crazy with being given this and that, and it was like, that shit was just like, yo, this movie, like Spike Lee and the timing of that shit, it was so dope. It was like, yo, everybody is hooping right now. Gotta feel this.
Yeah, it did a lot for me. It definitely did. I watched it too.
And we're due. He and I see Spike at least once a year in the summer, and we always talk about doing a sequel, because there's so much subject matter pertaining to young kids, young girls, hoopers, and like I said earlier, like, movies tell the story of the time, and who better to always continue to tell that story than Spike?
What is it going to be, a She Got Game?
Well, we tussle with that a little bit, but again, and I say that, I haven't said this to you guys yet, but what you've gone through, what you've experienced in your life, you got to write a book.
I have one.
Yeah, huh?
I have one. Soon come.
Awesome.
I want one.
So what happens is since we played in this walk of life, we have people that cover our lives, beat writers, journalists, and they tell stories about who we are. And you ever read a story somebody tells about you is not true? They say some things from their perspective. And so what happens is, when you write a book, because even when I wrote my book, I had to tell this guy that I'm writing it with that, certain things happen over what did and what didn't happen. And, they will switch the story around. Secondly, movies get transformed from books. And then when movies about us become part of the mainstream, that gives, Black actors roles. Black actors get roles, then young Black children have the opportunity to see people in America, thriving. It's not always, being a pimp or a slave or a prostitute or a drug dealer or a gang member. Those are the stereotypes that have been weighs heavily on who we are as people. But we have doctors, lawyers, firemen, teachers, professors, all walks of life. So, but the more we write books, the more we put stuff where they get turned into movies, and then the more we give people like us roles. And so it's important. to put books out there because kids need inspiration. And, you know, all these stories that we talked about, it's great to be able to read them and kind of take a journey through your life. You know, your life is like a museum now.
Yeah. So me and Blacks, our Spike Lee story where we felt like we was in He Got Game, right? Fast forward to what was that? After our rookie year, Black?
After our rookie year.
After our rookie year, you know what I'm saying? Me and Black and Miles here, we get the phone call, say, yo, Jordan Brand wants to shoot a commercial with you and your boy. And guess who gonna direct it? Spike Lee. What? Dude, we lost our mind, right? We like, what? They about to fly us to New York City, and we about to do a Jordan Brand commercial, like just a little between you, me, and Black, and the rest of the world listening. The Jordan 17s that came out in the briefcase, me and D Miles personally feel like those is the D Miles and the Q Rich Jordans, because that was our commercial. We did the commercials for. We up in that joint.
What was the song?
Huh?
What was the song?
It was the old school
Guru,
the old school joint. We was in the church.
Yeah,
in the church, and were we in Brooklyn or we was in Manhattan?
I was in that. Wasn't I in that one?
No, we was in Brooklyn.
Nah,
I did one by myself, and then me and Q did one together.
Yeah, this was the
okay, because I was in the church. I did one in the church too.
Yeah,
That wasn't. Now this wasn't the same. When we did this was the Jordan 17s with the strap and all that. Like those to this day that came in a briefcase. Like we get people adding us and tweeting us. Like people use the briefcase as a tattoo. They put their tattoo gun in there. They put their clippers in there. Different people use it, but like those shoes right there, like that was our moment where we felt like we on top of the world. Like, bro, like you talking about some young kids at 19, 20 years old flying out to do a video. First of all, we doing a Jordan Brand video. Jordan is our idol. He got us doing a video. Then we doing Spike Lee directed. We about to be up in this show, like
worldwide commercial.
Get there, we got a damn trailer and all this. So he had a trailer. I had my own trailer. We was like, like every single thing was like as big as it get for us. We was like, damn, dog, like this is it. And when them shoes dropped, like these are shoes. Y'all boys see them 17s drop. Like that was our one moment in the sun, like with that shit. Like
then we went to Foot Locker and they had our picture in there with the shoes.
All over very well.
Crazy, right?
Like it didn't get no bad. That was a dope ass moment.
Ask me this: the world stopped when Jordan said we was gonna be on Jordan Brand and be on there with you and like the whole squad that they already had before we came. Like, how was it for you when you found out you was gonna be on Jordan Brand and you was gonna be representing Jordan?
And wait, you were the original member, right? You was
the original.
Yeah.
You the original number one. Nah,
that can only be one first.
Ground zero. You know, there was nothing. It was not. They were talking about it. So when they mentioned it to me, I didn't know what it was. Like it wasn't, you know, something that we had ever seen before. Because I had always worn Nike. So you know, I was like, I'm gonna wear Nike. Jordan is gonna be an umbrella. Nike's gonna be an umbrella company to Jordan. So I'm all for it. I'm down, man. This, you know, Jordan's doing it. I want to be a part of it. And you know, just from where we are today, is so much has grown and come out. Like
it's beautiful, ain't it? It's beautiful where it's at right now.
Yeah, just think about like, you know, Paris Saint-Germain overseas.
Yeah.
You know, and how he collaborates. I did 2 years ago, I went to Sneaker Con in Dubai, and I did it on behalf of Brand Jordan, and yeah, it's incredible to go to the Middle East and see shoes that you had on your feet on display because some sneakerhead, you know, collected them, and then you see the collaborations, you know, the different designers that build Supreme and Zappa?
Yeah.
Like I got a chance to meet a lot of those people, and they're collaborating PSNY, like just where it's come from. Like that's what I love about Nike and Jordan is that you know, they've always had their pulse, you know, on the streets,
on the culture.
Yeah, giving people the platform to be able to enhance the brand, and that's all you hope with America. We know America as the land of the free, home of the brave. We've had a lot of inequities, for a long time, but when people do it right, you realize like the diversity is what makes this great country incredible, because black, brown, white, Asian, Jewish, Muslim, like that's the most fascinating thing in the world, when people come together and you have a commonality in tennis shoes and sneakers.
I always used to feel to you when you get them Jordans, and you used to get them exclusive pair, and them things, you got them things on, and it's ABC or it's one of them TV games, and everybody is talking about these shoes. Like, how does it feel when you used to have them exclusives on, and you get out there and play? It feel like you completed the uniform.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to me to watch guys now that don't keep the same color pattern with their uniform.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, you add a little something to it, but you keep it, it just
keep your colors right.
Yeah, keep colors right. Don't throw something else. I might accent a void color or pink, but you keep them base colors right.
Yeah.
I just remember when social media became big, when this stuff started, when Viral was a thing, like I would be, wearing shoes, and then that's all they talked about after the game was shoes that I had on my feet. And I was like, wow, this is a real thing. Like, people really, there's a culture out there that exists that I'm a part of that, follows this. This is legit. And,
that was our generation. We was following it when we got in, and he accepted us. We part of this bomb squad. Oh my soul.
I get asked a lot, just like you say, when the internet and the social media started, I get asked a lot, like, because I'm one of the longtime Jordan members, like, man, who got the best? The only person that I really defer to and say, had a better PE game than me is you. And that becomes because of the longevity. You had championships, you had them long playoff runs, and you know how they plan for that for us. So I missed that in LA. I ain't getting no playoff runs in there. I got it in Miami. I mean, I got it in Phoenix. I got it in Miami, and then in New York. Like, New York was one of my illest stretches, because that was like at the peak of PEs, and it was a different color. Like, and that's the main reason I say that me and you had some of the illest PEs going, because of our longevity with the brand, and then our teams were so far from the original colors that they were used to.
Yeah, that red and black,
greens and them yellows with Seattle, and then the greens in Boston, and then even with the gold, the yellow and red and black in Miami. Because I had some ignorant stuff my one year in Miami too. So it's like that flavor, and then I say Bibby was like a close right there, because Bibby had the purples in Sacramento, and then Atlanta colors and stuff. So he was right there, but like the longevity, because like, bro, when they gave you the rain game joints, them 11s and them shits, I say, hold on. I say, shut the damn door. I say, nothing. Crazy. And you got ignorant and went your ass out to shoot around mismatch. I say, oh, hell. Lost his entire damn man. Exploded the internet. The internet losing their mind right now.
They did. Listen. They created a pack for me with them shoes.
I remember it all.
The mismatch, the 11s and the 9s.
I remember it
all. It was, the way we were fortunate, because we had, to your point, we were able to, have longevity. So I spanned, a couple different generations, playing in 2 decades, and then having the different colors. But then, later on playing, primetime TV, you got the Christmas games.
All of that.
You got all the games that are poignant moments, NBA moments, from All-Star games.
Yeah, using
the Olympic
All-Star
games, 2000. Like, they had to construct something that, and I told me when I got the 3-point record in Boston, I told them, when they shot me the 13s, I was like, listen, it was like it was the day before, and I was pleading with them. I said, I need you to make these 13s for me. I need you to make them for me because I can't just break this record and not have something special on my feet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is going to always be a moment that is.
Are these the Sugar Ray 13s?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Them
So
shoes hard.
Yeah, so I had them shoes on, but listen how they got to me. They countered the shoes to me by playing, and they got to me right before the game.
Mm.
And they made the green. They had the green and whites, and they put Maktub on the green, which means it was written.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in Arabic. So, you know, that's what Jordan did for us.
Yeah.
You know, in our prospective markets, they made sure that we had our player exclusives.
Mm-hmm.
They made sure that it was something that was special to us. And, you know, that right there is a foresight that we were fortunate to be able to appreciate and get from our shoe company, because they made sure that they wanted us to know, and the people around us, they supported us, and those kids were going to buy those shoes.
I was at NBA Juniors in Orlando like a year or so ago. I went to the NBA Juniors. Your mom was there, and we was sitting there watching the championship game, and just laughing. And she just she nudged me. She said, "Hey, so I know you was with Jordan. What do y'all do with all them shoes? Like, where do they go? like, what do y'all do?" He said, "Because I'm having the problem with my son got all these shoes, and he don't know where to put them. So what you do with all these shoes and all this stuff you collect?"
Listen, you know, I think I'd never owned a pair of Jordans when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
My favorites were the fire red 4s.
Mm-hmm.
And you can walk down the street and ask a kid what their favorite Jordan is, and you can basically guess their age.
Yeah.
Because how we grow up, you know, like I remember playing with Michael Beasley.
Young B.
He was like, yeah, Bees was like, my favorite Jordans is the 16s, yo. 16s all day long. I was like, young ass. Like, you like the 16s? We were playing in the league in 16. Like, you know, like the 4s, because I was growing up and I didn't see them, and then I remember the kids in the neighborhood, and it takes us back to a time and place. And so now, before I got on with you guys, I opened up about 4 or 5 boxes of shoes, and it's fascinating to be able to see, you know, the evolution of the shoes and you know, directionality. I'm astounded that they continue to come up with new and different ideas.
Yeah.
But we are still ambassadors to the shoe game. We are sneakerheads. We are, you know, what Jordan hoped that we would be, embody the spirit of his shoe and his legacy. So what I do is I always try to keep that in mind. And whenever I get a box of shoes, I, you know, guys that wear shoes like me, I make sure they have some. But, you know, for the most part, I collect. You know, I continue. You know, because
if you collected them, Joe, you the all-time collector. Because I could just imagine what's in your shit. Like, just
everything.
And you know, I got to be careful because I give away stuff too. So I gotta be careful what I give away, because you know, there's some shoes I have. I guarantee you, like, if I put a certain pair of shoes on auction, I could get, you know,
30, 50, 100.
I think I would get 100,000 for a pair of shoes.
I got a couple.
You probably got them
Eminem
got
joints.
20 million in them.
I got 2 pairs in particular. Just off the top of my head, I could think of. I done saw for over 30,000 on the internet. The Eminem 4s, and then the not the low cut, but the mid cut Derek Jeter 11 suede joints.
Yeah.
With the 2 on the back. Because the low cut, everybody got apparently, but the mids, those go crazy. And I got a pair of both of them shits. And I ain't like, that's why I say I'm not no sneakerhead, but I just, you know, whatever I got, I got.
All right, what you think about the new generation of Jordan players? And 2 of them players is from St. Louis, you know, my homeboys, Bradley Beal and Jason Tatum. But you got Zion Williams, you got Russell Westbrook, still representing. You got and he picked a lot of WNBA players. He picked some WNBA players. I think it was Tia Cooper and man, I was just talking about Nurse. I think she played for she played for the Sparks now. Like just how the brand is evolving and got this new young talent of elite players to move to the next generation. And Zion just came out with his new shoe under Jordan. So how is that to see the next generation to push the brand even further?
Well, again, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but it's so important to try to, educate, these guys, because they're going to fall in our lap at some point in their life. You become retired. But while you're in that position, what you can do with that position to really take the brand to the next level, because we actually helped grow the brand to what it is today.
Yeah.
And serving in the NBA. So we have to do everything we can to give those young fellas a soft landing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, I did Brad and I talk whenever he's, he'll call me from time to time and we'll have a conversation. And then I try to give them a space to ask questions, to seek advice.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that we could do now in the space that we're in. And because I always had older heads that I could talk to, because sometimes you can't talk to guys on your team, they don't understand, or even your coach, or even family members. So to have somebody who's been through what you've been through, to be able to, ask questions and then help you deal with things on your team better, super important. And that's the role that we can play for those young people in this role now. I just hope that they're humble enough to accept who we are and what we've been through, because it's not always apples and oranges. Things, you should hit the fan at some point where it's okay. Like, whatever's happened to you 10 years ago, it ain't happening to you now, but it's happened to somebody else, and bad shit continues to happen and will always. It's how you respond to it, which makes you who you are. And so I just, my dreams for them would be just to use the platform and really, if you think about what MJ did for the game, just take that and grow it and continue to grow it so the people behind them can benefit.
When I got on the preseason team, when I came out to Boston, man, like I never had a teammate that I seen like get up and like, you're a Hall of Famer. Like you can, any day you could just say, I quit and I'm good. You just won a championship. And then, man, we preseason and man, you 2 hours before the first bus. You know what I'm saying? Like we get into the gym on the first bus, you already soaking wet and like in your shooting mode and in your style. I never, out of 10 years I played, I never had a teammate that I seen like that. And I feel like this platform, these the stories that, they need to hear and see. They're like, man, you was a Hall of Famer out the gate. Like I said, you could have quit any day and you doing it during preseason. Like the season haven't even started yet.
Yeah, and so, the phrase, if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. That's kind of what I subscribe to my whole career, because you put yourself in a situation where, in first, when you get drafted, it has a huge impact on you, because whether you have young players or you have older players that teach you the ropes. And for me, I had Elliot Perry, Michael Curry, Armin Gilliam, God rest his soul. Johnny Newman, Ben Baker, Glenn Robinson, like Sherman Douglas, like them guys, they were no frills. It was just go out there and play. And, Johnny Newman was a great resource for me, because this man came suited and booted to every game. And, he didn't compromise. He came, he was like, this is my job. And that's where I picked that up from with him. And it was different back then. But with Elliot and Michael Curry, we shot before every game. My first year, I didn't have a routine. And then I got with those dudes and we come over early, and then eventually they get traded away. And, my career was like, it was like life in Milwaukee, singing the song and everybody started disappearing and they get on.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it was. And then I was the last man standing. And then I would sometimes I developed routines where I was by myself. I developed routines where I had one person with me, or a coach, or a ball kid from another team. And the thing that always scared me was not being able to perform or do your job. So I was my biggest critic, and I was my hardest strength coach or um, uh, teacher or coach, because when I was in there working out, I knew how I needed to push myself. So when I did get into games, I was so comfortable at all angles. I was comfortable everywhere. I never, fatigue makes cowards of us all. So the minute you get tired, you just have that, much of a less lift on your jump shot. And so I was in constant search of trying to keep that lift, the same every time. So my release point was at the same point. So I had to make myself as uncomfortable as I could every single time, on the back-to-back, times when I had a week off. Like, it was always trying to constantly find that comfort level, which I was always uncomfortable. So I always tried to push myself.
At what year would you say you started the routine of being there that early? Because for me, I would say I was in LA. This had to be probably toward the end of year 2, but I know definitely my whole 3rd year and beyond. I remember showing up to the Staples Center, whatever time I got there. I was probably before most of my teammates, and you was out there, like, kind of like what D's saying. You was already, you was in the mid-workout when I come walking out there. You was in Seattle then. I'm come walking down. I'm like, damn. I remember, how some of the crew be around doing stuff on the car. I say, yo, man, how long Ray be here? They was like, shit, I don't know. I've been doing this for about 30, 45 minutes, and he was here before I started doing this. And I'm like, damn. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was like, and I remember asking one of the coaches. No, matter of fact, it wasn't one of the coaches. I remember asking Desmond Mason, who played with you. And then I remember asking Rashard Lewis, because Rashard was my boy. I remember asking Rashard, like, man, yo, what time Ray be getting to the gym? He was like, man, Ray asked, because sometimes he told me sometimes he would work with you, but like sometimes you be there too early for him. He like, shit, he like, man, Ray. I'm like, damn, I'm like, I gotta start coming early, right? I definitely don't think I'll probably come as early as you, but I did that shit for the rest of my career. I was there, man. I used to be there because I used to want to get there before everybody else that shoot, so I could just get my shit out the way. Ain't nobody's balls knocking mine in and out. Ain't nothing happening. I could really get through my thing and then be done. I'll be there when the dance team there, they going through the little dunk stuff. As soon as dunk people get out the way, I'm getting on and I'm about to do my stuff real quick, so I could be out of there and then I can kind of relax and just chill because I like to talk a lot. I'm sitting in the locker room talking to everybody by the time they get there, but I'm already done my shit. I started doing that like 2nd, 3rd year after I saw you doing it.
Yeah, so I try to see. I was getting there before the dunk squad and cheerleaders because I figured out, like,
that's insane, bro.
Yeah, I figured out like how I needed to be to get the work I need to put in. Based on what time I ate, whether I was home on the road, and then I can get my massage work afterwards, and then I can stretch, and then because the whole idea is obviously you don't want to exhaust yourself, but put yourself through a workout where you get a sweat that is unparalleled. So when you go into a game, your body has already been there. Your heart is already conditioned. Yeah, your heart is already conditioned. And so when I was in Seattle, I noticed, because, when you get traded to a team, like, bros be looking at you at the side of at the corner of their eye to try to figure out, like, who is this dude? Like, because they knew or heard about who I was and what my routine was, but they're like, why Milwaukee trade him? So I'm feeling everybody watching me. And then Rashard, he would start coming in and he started seeing it, and he was like, man, I need to start doing this shit. I need to start, putting in. And then what I started noticing, my routine started giving other people their routine, because I understood what it takes to be consistent, because consistency is the number one key to being great. If you show up somewhere for 10 years, the inner workings of your office, your workplace, whatever,
everything.
It is, sports, you know everything. And then
anything go wrong, you know how to fix it.
Yeah, they're like, go get D Miles. D Miles knows how to fix it because he always here doing this and that. And so what he does is what it does is it transforms down into money, because now when it's time to sign those checks, they got to pay who's the most valuable. You know, the ones who make the operation go, and who is not expendable. And you know, for me, I become everybody else's routine, because now they know, like clockwork, I'm going to be there. You know, good game or bad game. I always say the number one key to being available or being great is being available. And when you think about the most consistent thing that we as people have in our life, the most consistent thing, the thing that we see every single day, is the sun. Think about that. The sun comes up every single day. You know, the you know, depending on the summer and the winter, it'll change, the time will move, but it always comes up. We've never questioned whether the sun comes up. And the sun provides so much for us. But imagine if one day the sun doesn't come up. You know, it's going to send a lot of people into panic, and it, you know, a lot of shit will happen in the world. But we have faith that it's going to come up every single day. So if you can connect yourself to that consistency every single day, to be similar to that sun in your workplace, you know, whether you're playing a sport or a job, like, people start to depend on that sun, you know, to, you know, plant flowers, to do your work, to cut the grass, to whatever it may be, you depend on that. And then when they see your consistency, it gives them a breadth of experience, of consistency for themselves, that allows them to realize their greatness too, because now they see what it looks like. But if there's nothing there for them early, then they're just kind of waffling. I think with Rashard early, it helped him realize, because I always said he you know, he can be one of the best players in the NBA. And Rashard, he knew who he wasn't, and he worked himself into an incredible player and signed a huge contract and had a great career. And I like to think a lot of me being around him affected him in such a way that gave him that foundation, so he can grow and become an all-star player.
Oh yeah, I got to speak on that, because I was in that conference with Portland, and y'all used to kick our ass all the time. But just Rashard Lewis, man, just like how he played his game, man, you could tell he was so much better. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like he meshed so well with you, because you came to Seattle and you gave that spark that, you know, GP didn't leave after they did their thing, but you gave that spark, and y'all started making the playoffs, and Rashard Lewis stepped up big time. And like I say, me guarding him, I could see it in his game, how his level of play. Like, he knew where to be at all times. His spacing was always well. Like you say, he never did nothing out of body that he don't do. And he always was a complimentary player.
Man, listen, them people, both of these boys, Ray and Rashard, took turns on our ass. What was we at, in Japan or China, when y'all hit 50 on us in the damn? What was that? We was in China.
China? that was Japan, but Japan. I wasn't on that trip. I wasn't on that trip because I actually had surgery. I had during preseason, I had a bone spur break off into my ankle. So I missed the first 20 games of the season that year. Rashard gave y'all 51. You know, it was.
I thought you hit us for. Maybe you hit us for something else.
No, I think that was. Radmanovich played well too.
Somebody else in the first game hit like 30 something. Because I remember.
It was Flip Murray.
Flip. It was Flip. That's who it was. Philly Flip there. First game he lit us up for 30 or 40. Then Rashard came next game, hit 51. Only reason I'm bringing this up, because clearly I wasn't a victim in all of this. I wasn't really the guy guard neither one of them, so I could safely bring this up. But it definitely happened. I'm like, oh man, because I remember Dudley be saying like, well, the message we send it to the league is anybody come get 40, 50 on that.
Yeah, well, you got to create some better defensive momentum for us.
Back then I wasn't in that mode. I wasn't trying to really do all that, man. I was trying to, stay out the way and get buckets.
Yeah, that Rashard Lewis, like I think coming from Seattle going to Orlando, he still had that momentum of like he just turned to a good player, a solid player.
What did your routine consist of? Like average, like what was a regular routine for you?
Well, I mean, I started shooting free throws. That was always, the baseline. Whenever I felt like I was losing, my release was off, I'd just go to the free throw line. Like the year I won a 3-point contest, I shot free throws before the game just to work on that release. The shooting part is just your lift, and that's something that you got to get those legs ready for. So that's why I would always shoot 5 from the baseline, from the corner, from the top of the key, and then on the other side. And then I would do the same thing from the 3-point line. I would shoot 5, but I would also I would shoot 10 altogether, but I would run to half court back into those spots. And then what I would do is I would run underneath the basket because I wanted to always work on my footwork coming from every different angle, and then run in transition, and then I would get on my knees and jump up and have a guy throw me the ball and shoot, because now I had to work on getting lift from a standstill. I was trying to learn, teach my body how to create its own momentum to get it to lift. It's one thing to be running transition, you jump, that's easy, but to be able to create the momentum as you have no energy or any inertia going forward, you got to just kind of create it with your body. And so that was the baseline for what I would do. And then sometimes I would start off at all the way at the end line and run all the way into my shots, but I had to make 5 every time. And then I would do my pick and roll stuff, top of the key and on the elbows, coach would guard me and I'd come off, I'd get into the middle. And then I would do my post ups. So everything that I did covered every side of the court. So the thing that I learned, and I learned this through my injury, was since I'm right-eye dominant, I'm quicker getting the ball off, going over my right shoulder, because all I have to do is glance to the basket. But on the other side,
you got to turn all the way up.
I have to turn all the way around and get back to my right eye. So once I learned that out, or figured that out, I had to get my footwork. And that is the key, is your footwork everywhere. And I always show kids, like, when the ball's coming, my lower body's already turning to the shot. My body might be open towards the ball, but my lower body is facing, at the basket. So once I go, it's up and down. The ball is just being transported up in the air to that spot. So it's learning how I had to teach myself how to relocate the ball from different positions on my body. Bringing it from over here to then here, from over here to here, and from down here. Because, guys guard you differently. I could bring the ball over here and still get to that spot, jump, and create the momentum. So those were the things that I was working on every single day, like trying to relocate the ball and get comfortable doing it. And then being able to shoot free throws. And here's the thing, and you guys know this, free throws are very emotional. Like, when you get to the free throw line, you just think about it. As much as, when we were not in the league, I used to say, man, them guys make too much money missing free throws. But what happens is you get knocked on your ass. You're pissed off. Somebody just fouled you. You're down 2. You ain't getting the ball. Coach just put you in the game. You ain't touched the ball and you get fouled. Like, all those emotions going into a free throw, and your mind ain't right. Yeah. So now you have to go through this routine and shoot free throws. You got to calm yourself down and then
everything stop.
You stop and shoot. And what happens is people's heart rhythm gets the best of them, because they're allowing whatever's going on in their mind to affect their heart. Now it's like you miss shots, you miss free throws because you didn't calm that heart down. And so what do you do? How do you change that? Is you have to shoot emotional free throws when you're in practice. So every time I'm running, every time after practice, it's a free throw game. It's something that makes me unnerved or unrattled. And then I go shoot free throws, because that's the only way to make it similar to a game situation.
That's what I said. Like, when you hit that championship shot with Miami, I couldn't understand how you could backpedal that quick, catch the ball, get your lift and everything, and shoot it like that. I'm talking about like just like that. And I was like, how did he get that off? How was that a 3? How did he not step on the line or anything? But all that hard work, you know what I'm saying? That's what.
You can't understand that because you're not a shooter like us. Like that's the first reason why you can't understand that. But the second reason is all the hard work and everything he said about his routine. The first reason was like, I know he seemed like he was talking to foreign language. He talked about all this shooting and releasing and legs and everything. You know, he just dunk on people and block shots, man. This ain't what he talking about, Dre. You know what I'm saying? This how he do me when it's time to talk about defense and stuff. He can't really have, you know what I'm saying? We won 3-point competitions, me and you. We been won this. Like,
you got 2 between 2 of us.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? G-Miles on the outside, let me in on this one.
Well, let's talk about my favorite Ray Allen, the dunking Ray Allen then.
Okay.
Ray Allen that used to be dunking on them folks left and right, hanging on the rim and all that stuff. Let's talk about that.
He did that in Miami when he was the older rest. So which one you talking about?
I'm talking about you know them years when I'm talking about it was shit city. I'm talking about everybody could get it going to the
highlights when he was in Milwaukee. He was swinging around the rim with his legs, looked like he riding a bike.
Yeah. So which one is your favorite dunk on that you done had in your career? Because you got a lot of them, and you got a lot of good ones.
Yeah, because I snuck a lot of dudes.
I'm talking about come through there, slow it, boom.
I think one of my favorites was the one against Orlando is the playoffs.
T-Mac there, I remember that.
Yeah, and Daryl Armstrong was guarding me, and he got caught behind me, and I was all downhill from there. And the interesting thing is we were down 2 in the playoffs. This was I think it was game 3 in Orlando, and T-Mac fouled me, and ref should have called foul, and then I would have made the free throw, and the game would have been over with. I think we lost and went to overtime, and we lost, and we ended up winning the next game. But, those games, when you think about time and score, time of year, whether regular season or playoffs, like that's when it seems like it matters more because these guys, you see the real dudes show up.
Yeah.
Like the real dudes show up. Like it ain't none of this just shooting balls. No, I'm talking about a guy that knows how to get a bucket. Like, because the 3-point ball is great and the game is different today, but I still want to see these dudes that were like craftsmen.
Yeah,
at the game, like they'd come off a pick and roll and take a shot, and every time you couldn't stop them. And
you could come off that curl.
Mid-range game. Like now we ain't seeing no curling for shots.
Curling, no none of that.
We don't see mid-range shot, pump fake, and get to the middle, and we don't see none of that. Now I'm like, this is the part of the game that I miss because when I first got to the league, like. It was a chore to figure out what each person could do from a skill set, and nowadays it just doesn't exist anymore. So when I'm looking back at my career, I'm thinking about like I love the game in its entirety to be able to come down the lane and dunk on somebody, to shoot a 3, to shoot a mid-range, to shoot a left-hand layup going underneath the basket. Like there's so much more to the game, and I think even the coaches are also at fault because they preach 3s are more than 2s, which I get it, but I would still like to see. I hate to see when the guys take pump fake and they step sideways or step back and shoot a 3. I'm like, man, just get there and get the easy one because the shooting percentages are terrible these days with the 3-pointers.
Yeah, they getting them up.
I think that's why I've always and still do, and I'm a big fan of like Melo, DeMar DeRozan, even like KD, Clay, because like. As much as like you could say KD and Clay shoot 3s, but they get to their sweet spots. And the rest of them, DeMar live, and then Kawhi too. Kawhi, they be trying to talk about like, man, please, he live in the gravy space.
That's why Toronto won.
Exactly.
Because Toronto, every other team, that year was, Houston was doing it, Golden State, Milwaukee, they lived and died by the 3. And them dudes were pump faking, getting into the paint, taking that 2. Siakam was scoring in the paint.
Yeah, he was attacking.
Van Vliet was shooting 3s, but he was getting to the hole.
Yeah, he was attacking. He was creating.
Yeah. What's the other kid? I can't remember his name.
Kyle Lowry?
No, not Kyle. Kyle struggled. Norman Powell was shooting 3s, but he was still
getting to that bucket.
Getting to that bucket too.
When Kyle struggled, he struggled because he was relying on a 3-pointer. he wasn't getting to a mid-range game, which was giving him
an attack.
Build your rhythm first. Like that's the biggest thing about offense is, I know you could shoot a three early, like run off pick and roll and see how they're going to guard it, and then throw a pocket pass or swing it to the weak side guard that's rolling and see if you can get that defense shift and you attack it from there, get an easy layup, maybe a foul, go to the free throw line. Like when you can get your offense started like that, it takes so much pressure off the individual players.
Let's talk about this mad scientist, Danny Ainge, that created this big three. And not only did they create this big three, y'all got tossed in the shuffle of the Lakers and the Celtics history of the Boston and the Lakers. How is that to be a part of that? Go through that season. I heard y'all training camp was crazy that year once y'all got there. Y'all had to go overseas. And just going through that whole year and meeting the Lakers with Kobe Bryant at the end of the year and, winning that championship. Just explain to us that whole year and that process.
Well, being traded.
How did you hear about the trade going from Seattle to Boston?
Well, I was excited because we had got the number 2 pick. That was the year the Celtics should have got it because they had the worst record. Sonics ended up getting the number 2 pick, which had
KD.
Portland was going number 1 when they're going to pick Greg Oden, and then KD was number 2. So I was like, cool, me, Rashard, and KD, like we're on our way.
Yeah.
So that was the lottery. So then the draft day comes, I'm sitting in the room, and then first pick goes, and all of a sudden I see potential trade. They pick Kevin Durant, and then all of a sudden I see potential trade, and it says Seattle gets, and then it had like 7 players, like Delonte West, Wally Zerbiak, like Allen Ray, like 2 other players I remember. I was like, oh, I'm so gone. Because, when Boston gives up that much, I was like, I'm out. I'm gone. And so I had mixed emotion because I was like, damn, you bringing KD in, we about to be doing something special. And at the time it's just Paul there, and then I come. But at the same time, I was excited because I was going back to the East Coast. So now I'm getting excited. Obviously, we had to sell our house and move. People don't understand that part of it. Like you got to U-Haul all this and then move across the country and then find a new home and all this stuff.
If your kids got good friends, it don't matter.
No.
None of that matters.
So in that summer, I was talking to Danny, and the thing that I appreciated most about him was the man was asking me about different players around the league, something GMs hadn't done in making moves. Like they'll talk about players, but he wants to make another move, and then he tells me that he potentially has a deal on the table, and he's thinking about bringing Kevin Garnett in, and what I thought about it, and I was like, that puts us immediately.
Hell yeah.
It's go time.
Yeah.
So it happened, and then we add a couple different players, James Posey and
Pose.
PJ Brown.
PJ Brown came in the middle, at the San Francisco, but training camp, we were playing. We were going to Rome in England that year, in London, and it was probably the best thing for us as a team. And mind you, I just had surgery at the end of the season, so I wasn't supposed to go into training camp. But I had surgery. I come in training. There's no way I wasn't going to training camp.
Yeah, you got your shit together for that training camp.
Yeah, I mean, we were competing, going hard. It was like, it was.
I remember seeing y'all on NBA TV. You, Ray, you, Paul, and KG sitting over. I'm talking about overseas. Y'all sitting there sipping tea and shit. Y'all getting interviewed. I remember that. Yeah,
we used to sit. See, because we were on East Coast time, so at nighttime we couldn't go to sleep, so we would be up sitting at the hotel talking. We walk down the street, so it was the best. Like I truly believe every team. When I first got into the league, I thought it was a pain in the ass, but as I've gotten older, every team should go somewhere for training camp, because what happens, you go home, you're around your family, you don't bond. And the more you're around each other, the more you eat together, the more you might
bond.
Yeah, like training camp shouldn't be about running suicides and 28s and riding stationary bikes. No, it should be about meshing. like getting together and being around guys and, talking philosophy of the game. And yeah, you're gonna get, do some conditioning. But if you're a coach that is only thinking about playing till April, then, be my guest, run these guys to the raggedy. But if you plan on playing to June, then it's not about getting in shape right now.
What you're talking about is so undervalued. That's why it's only very few teams really get what you're saying. That's why UD is still in Miami and he's doing what he's doing, because they get it. Right, I'm telling you, like, teams do not understand what that brings. Like, yeah, like I hear, you watch TV and you watch some of these shows, you hear like, you don't need to be together to win a championship. Like, I hear you. It's not impossible to win when everybody ain't buddy. But you go look back at the teams that really won, and them people that mattered, they rocked with each other, bro. Yeah. They put that time in. I'm not saying that you can't show me a team that where, this person didn't like that person, they still won. Like, I get it. Yeah, that happens every once in a while. But the majority of teams that win championships, I'm talking about, forget basketball, sports across the board. Them boys got a bond. They built a bond somewhere. It came from somewhere. They didn't just like, nah, I get it. Sometimes you got talent, assholes can mesh and it can work, but not the majority of the time. The majority of the time, that, like you said, that shit is built in training camp. That shit is built in times that people don't see when y'all together. Like you said, when you go wherever you go, whether it's Hawaii or Army, Naval base, or whatever somebody picked to go, when you, like you said, when you not returning home to your family, you got to go to the hotel or wherever y'all at, and you ain't got wife, you ain't got your kid. It's like, we coming together to eat. We coming together at the end of the night to talk. When we get out of practice, all right, man, I'm going to go get a massage. I'm going to do this, and then we're going to play cards at this time, or we're going to eat at this time. It's us. And that's when you really get to find out what this person about, what your teammate about, and how they rock, and y'all make that bond. And people undervalue that, man. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah. And what happens from that is you build a protocol, a safety protocol. So when things do, or if they possibly go sideways, how to get that back. Because if you play cards regularly, when you lose, y'all meet in the room, let's play some cards. Mm-hmm. Or on the plane, you play cards. So when you lose, you play cards and you sit there and you hash it out. Like the ones that the teams that don't talk and they splinter away, those are the ones that go home in April.
Mm-hmm. Because they go home and they talking to their best friends and their cousins, and you already know, everybody sitting here. This is not me trying to talk about people's family and friends. It's just how it is. They with us. I done had to tell some of my closest friends, closest family, like, hey, be cool. You don't know what you're talking about because you're not in this locker room, and I get it. You love and you support and you with me. You want me to win, but you're wrong right now. Yeah. You talking about the coach the wrong way. You talking about my teammates the wrong way. Y'all don't know what's going on. They just speaking out of really love for you and trying to be on your side and console you. And that's not always the right thing. But that's what I appreciated about my shit and our shit, the way we came in. I think that's why when you look at it, like me, D-Miles, Corey, Keon, we as solid as it come to this day because of those like brothers, because we all experience the same thing in real time. Where people experience that on their own, and it's a difference when, like you say, that's how teams get tight and friendships get bonded because of that stuff.
Yeah.
So how was it to, like, y'all when y'all formed the big three, like everybody, it was like y'all already run the championship. Everybody wanted to beat y'all. They kind of figured like y'all was gonna go, and with that, they formed the big three, but you still got to win it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, teams was coming at y'all head, and then, like I said, you get to the end, you get to the Lakers. Just go through that process of that season or that playoffs of playing the teams and y'all gelling and they getting the clicking in the playoffs and y'all really go on that run.
The most important thing about that team was we, as individuals, we had success individually, but nothing great team-wise. The only person that won was Pose in Miami.
Miami, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so nobody really knew what it took. And so we were willing to sacrifice all year long, less minutes, less shots, but we won.
Yeah, buy into Doc.
Yeah,
Doc.
like we won, and Doc wasn't trying to beat it out of us either. Like, you guys got to work out and be in the best of shape. No, we did so much. We had such individual pride. Guys were in the gym working out, and that was all the difference. Like, he didn't have to, you feel like an independent contractor. Like, you just, there's some days we'd have a game on Monday on the road, and then we wouldn't have practice on Tuesday, and then he would have a shoot around on Wednesday before the game. So I had a whole day and a half where I didn't have to see nobody. So I could, I'd come to the gym on my own, do whatever I need to do, but I was able to rest. Mm-hmm. Like, no coach I've ever played with had that much comfort.
I never had a training camp as I had when I came out there with Doc. I was like, man, we ain't coming back. Like, we ain't do nothing today. Like, that was just I never had that. And I was like, man, that's the type of coach I need, especially when I was on these knees. And these knees was giving me problems. It was like, man, that's the type of coach that you need instead of being on a team that's young and you trying to run you all the way through the dirt,
Yeah, and like I said, that coach that's trying to do that is an April coach.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches that play in June, I'm not trying to tire you out or fatigue you. I don't need you to play your best basketball now. Like, we just need to peak over the course of the season.
Tell me this. I want to know what it was like when you were in Boston and you guys achieved that championship. What was that feeling? Because y'all did it in the first year of coming together, and it was expected to be, y'all was going to be this and y'all was going to be that. But, like, how was that feeling to achieve that goal of a championship? You hadn't been a champion before. You had been in the league and achieved a lot of accomplishment. How was that to come together in that first year? And, like you say, to go from Seattle thinking, man, we about to get KD, we're going to be all right, we're going to be better, and then get thrown into that scenario and win a championship.
Well, I was obviously, Sam Presti was the GM then, and he traded me away, and I was, we had a conversation, and he was trying to build, and then he trades me away, so I was like snake in the grass. But then I ended up in Boston, and we win a championship, so I'm like, I can't be pissed off at him because he put me in a great situation. It's not something that you ever think possible. I never worried about winning the championship because you got to be fortunate to be on a team with players and with an organization.
Talk about
it. Like everybody bought in, and even during the year they were trying to get better. Like after we made the initial movement roster wise, trade deadline, you're trying to get better, and then as people got waived towards the end of the season, we added P.J. Brown and Sam Cassell, which proved very beneficial for us to win the championship. So it was like, you don't know. Like we went to the playoffs, first round, 7 games, Atlanta. Mm-hmm. We could not beat Atlanta in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. That joint turned into something that we had never seen before. And that might be some of the best basketball that the Hawks have played in that building.
Oh, man, they play y'all hard. Joe Johnson, Josh Smith, Pachula, hacking ass. They play y'all hard.
But it was like a crescendo to the playoffs for us, because then we go to Cleveland and we win in 7 games there, and it took us like all of it because LeBron was doing his thing, and then obviously we win in 6 in Detroit. And so by the time we get to the Lakers, it almost seemed like the hard work was past us. Mm-hmm. Because we had dealt with so much. The game in the Eastern Conference was so much more physical, and they picked the Lakers to win. So we came in, we played, tough nose, hard, gritty basketball, and it was serendipitous. We were in a position where, as long as we, Kobe didn't go off and do too much craziness, like we were primed, we were ready.
Yeah.
How was it for you to see the next generation? You're on the team with D-Wade, LeBron, Bosh. You know what I'm saying? This is the next generation of players. How was it to see them young guys, them guys kind of in their prime, trying to do something great and special over there?
Well, it was great because they truly respected my voice, and they deferred to me a lot in a lot of situations, asking my opinion, and There was a great appreciation for myself, for Juwan Howard. And that right there it allows you to have a space where you're respected and you can come in and do your job. And it was a great working environment.
Tell me this, D Miles brought it up earlier, but when you hit that fucking shot, I need to know in real time what that felt like. Cause we players, we know how it go, and I know what the fuck I saw. I'm sitting here, they done roped off the sidelines. They bringing, they getting ready. Like in real time, the reality is setting in. I see the timeout. They show D-Wade, they show the bench, they show you, LeBron, they show everybody. They showing y'all, it's like y'all have the realization that it's like, this shit about to be over. Like it could be over. Like you could see that in everybody's face. It ain't no bull. This is no bullshit. No put like it. Everybody could see defeat you could see defeat for y'all. You could see triumph for the Spurs. You see them roping shit off, getting shit ready. You like, damn, this is like for you to hit that shot and to flip the whole course of history. Tell me what that was like in real time as it's happening. And like D Miles said, you did it as, like you said, you prepared for these moments and everything, and you got your feet together. Like, but aside from that, I didn't listen to you explain how in the moment you got your feet, you didn't practice it. After that, the huddle, like after you've made this shot and the re-energize y'all got it, after y'all won that game, and to know that you did what you did and this couldn't have been won without you, what is that feeling like?
It was interesting because when we saw the game slipping away, we turned the ball over late in the game. San Antonio missed some free throws. LeBron hits the first three.
Mm-hmm.
During the game, Mike Miller hit a three with one shoe on.
Mm-hmm. Threw it in the crowd, threw it to the bench.
Yeah. So when you think about the way teams win championships, there's one moment that gets you to the next. Somebody does something that gets you over the hump. Play off the bench, you start from 5. Whatever it may be, and that's kind of how that went. I remember after the next day we had practice, but what we're going to just do is go and throw a walkthrough, and the media's in there, and we're just going to shoot around a little bit. We sit there and play some shooting games, and then we walk off and we watch film. But I was getting treatment in the training room. I had been there early, and I walked into the locker room, and Mike Miller goes, "There he is." And I was stunned because in my mind, I thought that we were there because we all contributed. And Mike says, "Man, bro, we would be in here packing our shit if it weren't for you."
True story.
And yes, that we see that firsthand, but you all know, every little thing transpires into that final moment. Mm-hmm. So missed free throw, a turnover, a block shot, all that gets you to that moment. And it's easy to point or shine the light on that moment that actually took you over the hump. And that's kind of the way I've always been. Like, everybody did their part to get us here. And obviously that was probably one of the most glaring moments of that game that got us to where we need to go. I was glad I could be a part of it. If I missed that shot, it wouldn't have been a big deal because everybody would have said,
Brian fault, D-Wade fault, blame it on the guy.
Yeah. But even me shooting it, like, there's no way you would have made that shot. That's just, you were in a difficult situation. Nobody could make that shot. But when you show the possibilities when you don't give up, that was, showing the possibilities of how a team doesn't give up and continue to believe in themselves.
If you had 5 players, you had 4 players to play with out of all the teams that you played with. If you had to pick 4 players to hop in the rabbit hole with and win you a game, it don't matter what team, what are the 4 players you'll choose? You got some heat because you can play with some boy.
Yeah. I'm taking Glenn Robinson.
Big dog.
Yeah.
Big dog.
I'm taking Terrell Brandon.
People sleep.
People sleep. They don't even know
People
about
sleep.
TB.
I'm looking for TB right now.
Yeah, that man used to get mid-range game and split the pick and roll.
You said
like nobody's business.
Too cold.
I mean, sheesh.
You got the pick of the litter.
Whole lot of.
Yeah. I mean, I played with Shaq. It'd be unfair to put Shaq on there, but it's easy to say Shaq.
Shaq daddy. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, Shaq daddy.
It's easy to say Shaq. I'm going to say Shaq and I'm going to say KG.
Hey, I know what I need to ask you, though. Because this is my favorite question. I got a picture right here on the wall of me with a big dumbass chain with everything except my my social security on it. I need to know because you signed the biggest deal in Milwaukee Bucks history at the time. When you got that bag, I know you took care of mama. You still take care of mama. I know that. I want to know what Ray did for himself. Like on South Central, Ray doing real good, taking care of new car for Ray, new house for Ray. Ray doing real good. Like, what did Ray do when he got that big old bag? What did I don't want to hear about you taking care of I'm talking about what flashy shit
for yourself.
Where you look back like, damn, that was kind of crazy, but I love that shit when I did it.
Well, for me, and Milwaukee helped because you ain't doing nothing super crazy because you know how
Milwaukee.
Yeah, like you can't be flossing in Milwaukee because you're gonna have a car sitting on bricks,
too much snow out there.
Yeah, so the thing that I did do is I bought a 360 Spider and I had it in the garage.
Him and Corey McGetty.
Yeah.
AKA Ferrari F50.
Ferrari boys.
Let me just let you know about that Spider, though. I had a CL65 that'll tear that thing out the frame until we get a little further and you get in your top gear. But when we first start off, I'm kicking your ass out the frame. Ask Corey McGetty. We was on Lincoln Boulevard coming from the airport. I tore his ass up one day. Go ahead.
That's why I say you can't go wrong with some of these cars. Like,
they go wrong.
Like, my wife has it's a BMW i3, and they say that thing
the M3 joint.
No, the i3.
Oh, the i3. Oh yeah, that shit fast.
They say because it's electric. They say that thing is one of the fastest cars that they have from 0 to 60. That thing, and it's electric.
Mm-hmm. That boy bought that Ferrari.
How was it when you heard that you was gonna be inducted into the Hall of Fame? Like, how was that for you and your family?
Baller.
It was, the Hall of Fame was super, super emotional. Like, just thinking about.
Go through your whole life.
Yeah, man. You go to All-Star games, you have fun, you play the Olympics, you just enjoying yourself. But the Hall of Fame was like, it was like, okay, this is over with. I get to sit back and now cry and celebrate those that helped me get here. I think that's what it is, a culmination of your life and the people in it that push the envelope, that fought for you to have tennis shoes on your feet, have clothes on your back, a camp to go to. So that's what I wanted to be about, was the people that got me.
Coaches, teammates, everything.
Yeah, and so I wanted to make sure that I talked about those people because those people, were the ones that carried me and I thought, when I'm announced to the Hall of Fame, I get to put those people out in the forefront.
When you came over, they said to Boston, they said there's 3 Hall of Famers. KG just went in the Hall of Fame the other day, and Paul has selected to be next year. To see that complete of y'all 3 Hall of Famers to win that championship, to see Paul getting in it next year, how is that for you to see your guys get in the Hall of Fame and be a part of that Hall of Fame status?
I'm just thankful that we won in 08. Because you don't want to see that 3 of us were Hall of Famers. Like, y'all were Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I win the championship.
So it is. It's a glory.
All right, yo, that's been a wrap, man. This is dope. We had Jesus. We had Jesus Shuttlesworth in the building, man. He got game. Ray Allen missed a 3-point shot.
Hall of Famer.
Sugar Ray, H.O. Wealth, big time baller, man. We appreciate you, Ray. Appreciate you pulling up on the homies.
Right up.
I feel like I went to school today with y'all / church. So I appreciate y'all for sure.
Yes, sir, man. All love, big dog.